All right, guys, the game is over. Utah pulls off the win against Baylor 23-12. Big win, not conference play, but it was against a conference opponent. And I think there's a lot of good to take away from the game, some concerns that we'll absolutely talk about. Quick overview. Utah takes a big lead right out the gate. I believe it was 20-0 very quickly, or 23-0 actually, very quickly in the game. And then Cam Rising gets injured and Baylor slowly starts to creep back up. They never get really in striking distance of taking the lead, but definitely closer than you would have liked it to be. It looked like we were really going to blow them away with like a 20 plus point win. They slowly started to inch back in, and our defense was able to just grind it out and just slug it with that Baylor offense to make sure they did not get back in this game. So we're going to break it all down, guys. Again, I did mention Cam Rising got injured in this game. His pads were completely off. And, his injury status is absolutely what I'm sure all fans are thinking about. So we're going to talk about the updates we have on that. We're also going to talk about what happened during the game. I do want to keep it pretty positive. There's definitely some negatives and some concerns, but there was some great performances today. Some awesome guys that I'm excited to shout out that really stepped up. And without the performances by these guys, there's a chance we don't win this game. And I was really impressed with some people today. Some great performances. And we're going to dive into all of it. It's going to be a great time, guys. Before we do that, I do want to just do a quick ad read from our friends at Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle is a vintage clothing company. Charlie Hustle is a big sponsor of the Big 12, and this is for my partnership with the 10-12 Network. Check them out as well. Charlie Hustle, really nice vintage clothing. I'm actually wearing their shirt. Super nice stuff. So make sure you check them out. Seriously great stuff. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Use code 101215 for 50% off any order. So super cool, guys. I'm excited to dive in. Before we get into all that, like I said, we'll talk about the injury updates. We'll talk about the players to give shout outs to, players that were concerning to me, general concerns, some analysis of some performances. But should be a great time, guys. Smash the like button. I want you guys to comment. Like I said, the topics are the injury updates, the players of the game. We'll also talk about some concerns with the offense and specific players that you thought could have done better. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts even before we jump in. Comment that below, and let's go ahead and dive in. Go Utes. All right, guys, like I was mentioning, we're going to start with the positives. What did we see that was really good to see and that we enjoyed, right? Because there was really a lot of good, and I was pretty impressed with a lot of people. The number one guy in this game that really stood out to me personally was Mekhi Bernard. And his stat line's awesome. It's honestly probably one of the better stat lines I've seen from him. We got him at 19 carries, 118 yards. That's 6.2 yards a carry. So a really good game for Mekhi Bernard. But more than that, why I'm shouting out Mekhi Bernard as much as I am is we were not moving the ball in offense. We'll touch on this later as we diagnose how that game went after Cam left the game. But we were not moving the ball at all on offense. And Mekhi Bernard made a few big plays where he just kind of made something happen, had a cutback, and then just turned on the burners and made a big play happen. And today was a day where whatever we had to pay to keep Mekhi Bernard on this team, sure, it wasn't anything crazy, but whatever it was absolutely worth it when you look at what he did. I mean, there was a moment where it looked like they might be coming back, right? Because our defense was tired. It was 3 and out or maybe 5-play drives by our offense, 6-play drives by our offense at times. And the defense was not able to get off the field at all or stay off the field. They could get off the field. They were still doing a great job. The problem was the offense was not holding up their end of the bargain. And Mekhi Bernard made some plays on some of the final drives that were really awesome. He had a huge run at the end. I forget how many yards it was exactly. See if I can find that play. Yeah. So Mekhi Bernard, where was it? It was a big one. It was, 30 yards. He had a 30-yard run on Utah's final drive before their game ender that really kind of took Baylor out of contention on that drive, right? So I thought that was really awesome, or at least pulled away in the game. Another guy on the Utah team that really had a good game on offense was Money Parks, right? 3 receptions for 80 yards, clearly the best receiving weapon. The next guy had 15 yards. So without Money Parks, we basically had no receiving game in that. Now, I'm not blaming the receiving weapons. I think there were other problems, right? Cam goes out. That's tough to, adjust for, but thank God for Money Parks, right? Even before Cam went out, he was still getting the majority of the yards, and he did a great job. And he had more yards on his own than I believe any other all the other receivers combined. Yeah, I believe that's accurate. Yeah. He had more receiving yards on his own. There was total 122 receiving yards, and Money Parks had 100 or 80 of those. So he was 2/3 of the receiving yards on this team. So that was pretty wild. Some defensive performances that I thought were really impressive. I think the number one is Tao Johnson. 7 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. And these were impactful, third down, big play. Like if you don't make the play, they're going to make something happen. And he hit hard behind the line. I thought Tao Johnson really showed up. And another guy, Nate Ritchie, showed up big time. 9 tackles, 4 of them solo. Also, Tao Johnson, all of them were solo tackles. That's pretty impressive. And Nate Ritchie also had a tackle for a loss, and some of his tackles were like right at the line and was able to stop them from converting on like a 3rd and short or something like that. Really, on those final couple drives, Nate Ritchie had some good plays. Another guy that really shut out today, and I think it's hard to argue that he wasn't the defensive MVP. Oh, Taylor Johnson is the defensive MVP, and I think it's solidified because there was a blocked kick, and Taylor Johnson grabbed it and returned it for a touchdown. On top of everything else he did today, it was awesome. Connor O'Toole, though, gave him a run for his money with what he did. Connor O'Toole, 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss. He was all over the freaking field today. Tao Johnson, Nate Ritchie, and Connor O'Toole were big reasons we won this game. Another guy I'll give a shout out to is Van Fillinger. I thought he had a really good game. 2 tackles for a loss, a sack, and he had 5 total tackles. And I believe he was the one that blocked the kick that Tao Johnson returned for a touchdown. So tons of good performances. Let me just make sure I am not leaving anyone out. I think that's everybody. That there's definitely some honorable mentions, some guys that had good games, but I thought those were the guys that really stood out. Those 5 or 6 were 6. So Mekhi Bernard, over 100 rushing yards. Money Parks, 2/3 of the receiving yards. He was basically our only receiver today. And then Nate Ritchie, Tao Johnson, Connor O'Toole, and Van Fillinger. I thought those were all really good games by all those guys. And I think, those guys, from the individual performance perspective, were a big reason we were able to hold on to that lead without Cam. But I think a lot of you guys will agree with me. Anyone you think I'm leaving out, feel free to drop it down there. But I felt like I'd be surprised if you guys didn't agree that those were the clear people that deserved the shout out. So I want to hear what you guys think. Lots of other people had solid to good games, but I thought those were the main ones. So those are the shout outs I wanted to give before we start talking some concerns. And one last thing is the defense was awesome overall. Like I think if anyone's being critical of this defense, considering that they were on the field, like after Cam goes out, the defense, like the offense stops doing anything basically for 2 quarters. And then the defense is on the field the whole time and just never getting to rest. And the fact that they were able to put up the performance they did with the lack of help they were getting from the offense to keep them fresh was extremely impressive. This reminded me a lot of the UCLA game last year, where it was just our defense had to do all the work. So defense did great, and all those guys deserve shout outs. But let's go ahead and we'll do the injury updates. We'll do the concerns. We'll talk about the offense without Cam. Okay, and let's talk Cam Rising injury. I'm sure a lot of people are here to get an update on that. So Kyle Whittingham gave some notes in the post-game press conference. Steve Bartle was posting on Twitter, and all we're hearing is it's not that serious. Seems to be a deep laceration on his hand. I don't know what not serious means. I think that like what I'm taking from not serious means there's a decent chance he's in next week against Utah State, a good chance he's in the week after against Oklahoma State, and a very good chance that it's, less than a 3-week injury. So that's kind of what I'm taking. I would say if you wanted my guess, the fact that multiple people are saying it's not a serious thing, I would expect to see him against Utah State until we hear otherwise. So I know a lot of people want like an exact timeline. That's what I wanted to, and I have not gotten it yet. So if you guys have any details on what a lacerated hand, I think it's his throwing hand. So if anyone has any details on how long that injury could last, I'd love to hear it. But even a Cam at 80% would be, something we definitely want after what we saw today. But that's the injury update on Cam. Hopefully he will be back in next week. But no matter what happens, it doesn't sound like it's a season ending injury or anything that will keep him out for a very prolonged period of time. Okay, so there is something I want to address real quickly. And this is something I've brought up before, especially last year, right? Is the offense whenever Cam is not in. It is very frustrating to watch, guys. I mean, Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes, Isaac Wilson. It's like no matter who's in there, it doesn't work. And I get it that they don't have a full repertoire and a full like playbook built around them. It's more built around Cam. But with Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson, this was a year. This was a full year, and you knew week in and week out. Like Andy Ludwig can say what he wants. You knew that they weren't playing, and I don't know if it's game planning. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. But what I'm saying is something needs to change. Like there's no way all these guys are bust, and you're gonna tell me that's the best we can put out there. Isaac Wilson against, I think a inferior team compared to what we had. Like Baylor doesn't suck, right? They really don't, but they are not on our level. And the weapons around Isaac Wilson were better than the weapons on the other side of the field. And the fact that we can't figure out how to get something done, like that was a whole half of nothing going on offense and almost put a surefire win. Like at that point in the game, we're up 23-0, and it almost put a surefire win in jeopardy. There was a moment there where you started to think like, they are getting close enough to get a little concerned. And I hate to see that it's just quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. Charlie Brewer, right? I didn't even mention him. Charlie Brewer, Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes, Isaac Wilson. Luke Batari looked okay, right? I'm not saying Luke Batari is anything special that should be making dynamic plays, but let's be honest, this is a concern. I can't not say this, and I'm sure some Utah fans are going to think I'm really negative, but I think if you're not noticing this as a real issue, you've got your head in the sand a little bit, honestly, because the fact that one player, and for sure, your quarterback is the lifeblood of your team. But we go from having a superstar quarterback in Cam, who really is a big time star, to looking awful, just god awful when he's out. Like it's not like right? Like I get it. You can't expect anyone to be Cam Rising, but we got to expect more than that. I don't know. I just wanted to rant about that a little bit, and I don't want to come off super negative, but I feel like everyone freaks out as if you're super negative when you state this obvious point, but it is a real thing, guys. Why is it every quarterback outside of Cam Rising cannot make this offense work? To me it really is a concern, and I think keeping Cam healthy right now just seems like such a huge deal moving forward. Like that's what our offense looks like without Cam Rising, with Brant Keithy, mind you, with Brant Keithy, but without Cam Rising. And I think, I'm not saying like Ludwig's not good. I'm not putting that out there. I'm just saying like he needs to, look within himself and figure out how to make this team better when Cam Rising's not in. It is a real thing, and it is very concerning when you're watching it quarterback after quarterback after quarterback after multiple years. I do worry. And I worry more than anything, like what happens next year, right? Like what does this offense look like once Cam is gone? And I'm sure it'll be better than what we've seen because they'll have a whole offseason to game plan around specific quarterbacks. But still, I mean, how much better is it going to be? So I'm just ranting a little there, but I did want to point that out a little. It is something that has been on my mind, and today, it showed against SUU. That was Isaac Wilson against SUU, and he really didn't look good. And then today against Baylor, Isaac Wilson again looked lost. And what I don't get is, after 4 drives of looking lost, or 3 drives at least of just being lost, like we don't have someone behind him that could step in and do a better job. I want Isaac Wilson to be the future. I want him to be awesome, but seriously, we don't have anyone we carry 5 quarterbacks. The other 3 guys couldn't do better than that. What we saw today, like I as I mentioned, I want Isaac Wilson to be awesome. I want him to be the future of this program. And he did step up and make one good throw, but outside of that, damn, like we almost lost the game because we had no offense. So hope you guys don't mind my rant there. I just wanted to share how I was feeling with you guys. Okay, guys, and I'm going to end on a positive here because there was a ton of good from this game. Seriously, I thought, there's definitely some critiques that I mentioned earlier and that need to be addressed. But the good is that when Cam was in, this offense looked really awesome, really high powered, and like one of the best offenses in the Big 12, if not like a better college football offense. It really was. It was very impressive, and I thought we did a great job. And on defense, I thought we were lights out. I mean, it wasn't until the third quarter or so, when our defense was drained and on the field the whole time, like I mentioned, that we started to really let them do anything. And even when we did let them do stuff, their quarterback couldn't do anything. And we were kind of playing bend, don't break. Sorry, my son's touching my head. Um, but it was overall a great performance on offense and defense. I thought a ton of positives, a lot of great takeaways. Just hopefully we can improve on some of the aspects that continue to plague us over time. I thought the backup corner, the cornerback position with Kenan Johnson out didn't look amazing, but it didn't look terrible either. So I thought there was some definite, great signs about this team moving forward. Sorry, that's my son. All right, well, I am out of here, guys. Please make sure you guys smash the like button. Also, comment down below. What are your thoughts on all the topics we discuss, or any other injury information you guys do have after the video appears or airs? I would love to hear about it. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, we put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. I'm out of here. Go Utes.